used to do DoorDash at night, and work in late hours felt normal to me. One night, around midnight or maybe 1 a.m., it was really slow. I was just driving around, listening to music and waiting for an order. Finally, a request popped up, and without thinking much, I accepted it. There weren't many options anyway. I headed to a 24/7 McDonald's, grabbed the order, and followed the app's directions to the drop-off location. It was about 15 minutes away. The whole drive was quiet. The roads were empty, and I wasn't really thinking about anything. I was just going through the motions. As I got closer, the app directed me to an area that felt off. It looked like a business district, but not a well-maintained one. Usually, office buildings were in neat landscaped areas, but here, everything looked run down. The buildings were old, the bushes were overgrown, and the whole place felt abandoned. The app told me to pull into a parking lot behind a small office building. It was a single-story structure, just as worn down as the others. I had delivered to office buildings before. Sometimes people ordered food while working late. So at first, I didn't think much of it. But the eerie atmosphere gave me a weird feeling. Then I got a message from the customer. They said they saw me pull in and told me to bring the food to a gray metal door on the side of the building. I replied, "Okay," and parked near the door. As I walked up, I noticed there were no markings, windows, or anything, just a solid gray door. Right as I reached it, another message popped up. "Just bring it inside for me." Without overthinking, I opened the door and stepped in. Inside, the place was dimly lit. Only small emergency lights flickered along the hallway. I expected a reception desk or something, but there was nothing. Just silence and a long, empty corridor. I pulled out my phone to ask the customer where to leave the food when I heard a click behind me. I turned around and grabbed the handle. The door was locked. A chill ran through my body. Someone had locked me inside. Panic set in. I dropped the bag and yanked on the door harder, but it wouldn't budge. My only option was to go further inside and find another way out before whoever locked me in found me. I started moving down the hall when I heard a door open somewhere inside the building. Footsteps followed, getting closer. I ran to the end of the hallway and found another door. I pushed through. Another dimly lit hall, lined with empty office rooms. Just then, I heard fast footsteps approaching from the way I came. Without thinking, I slipped into one of the rooms and crouched down. A second later, the footsteps rushed past the door. Whoever it was, they ran straight to the locked door where I had been. The moment they were distracted, I bolted the other way, running in the opposite direction, hoping to find an exit. By some miracle, I found a door leading outside. I sprinted to my car and sped off without looking back. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, 20 minutes later, no one was there. They told me the office building had been abandoned for over 5 years. No security cameras, no records of anyone working there. Nothing. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't escaped in time. And honestly, I don't want to. The forced delivery pack when I was younger. I used to do delivery work for extra cash. One night, I got an order around 9 p.m. and dropped it off at 9:20. It seemed like a normal request, except for one thing. The location was farther than usual. It was about 20 minutes outside of town, heading toward an area I didn't really know well. Our restaurant was on the town's edge, and this delivery was leading me even further out, toward empty land and woods. I followed the directions onto a highway. Not a big 4-lane highway, just a 1-lane road cutting through the forest. I figured there were some scattered houses out here, so I didn't think much of it. After about 15 minutes of driving, my GPS said I had arrived. But when I looked around, there was nothing. No driveway, no mailbox, just trees. Confused, I pulled off to the side and double-checked the address. Both Google Maps and Apple Maps pointed me to the exact spot I was in, but I didn't see a house. I decided to call the customer. As the phone rang, a dim light flickered in the trees. It wasn't bright, but it stood out in the pitch-black forest. Before I could react, the call connected. A man's voice came through. "Hello? Hey, I'm here with your order, but I don't see your house anywhere." He asked me where I was. I described my location, and he said, "Yeah, that's right. There's a driveway leading into the woods. It's kind of hidden. You might have to get out to find it." I sighed, got out of my car, and looked around. Then he hung up. That was weird. And even weirder, the light in the trees flickered again. If the customer was out there, why wasn't he coming to the road? And if he was, where was the driveway? I looked down and finally noticed something. A narrow, rough dirt path cutting through the trees. It wasn't a real driveway. It looked like someone had carved it out with a shovel. No way was I walking down there. Something felt very wrong. I quickly put the food down on the roadside and turned back toward my car. Just then, I heard rustling in the bushes. That was enough for me. I jumped in my car and sped off. To this day, I don't know what was out there, and I don't want to know. Cabin horror one night, while delivering for Domino's. I got an order around 11 p.m. It was in a wooded area I wasn't too familiar with, but I followed the GPS anyway. Eventually, I reached a gravel road lined with dim lamps. At the end of the road, 5 narrow paths split off, each leading to a small rental cabin. I parked my car, grabbed the pizzas, and started walking toward cabin 3. It was dark, really dark. The dim lights barely helped, and the deeper I walked into the woods, the worse I felt. After a long walk, I reached the cabin. It was completely dark inside. No porch light, no signs of life. I knocked, no answer. I called the customer. No one picked up. Just as I was deciding whether to leave, I got a text. Not at the cabin. The door's unlocked. Just leave the pizza inside. I pushed the door open slightly. Pitch black. Then, a creak. I turned toward the bedroom door. It slowly opened. A man stepped out. He moved fast toward me, smiling. "Hey man, I got your tip." Something was wrong. As he lunged, I bolted out the door and ran straight into someone else. There were 2 of them. I shoved past and sprinted down the path. I could hear them chasing me, but they stayed in the darkness between the lamps. I reached my car and sped off. Later, the police found nothing. The men had broken into an unrented cabin. Fake number, gift card payment, no way to track them. To this day, I wonder, what would have happened if I had stepped all the way inside?